It was rush hour at Grand Capital Bank. The lobby was packed with millionaires. A poor single dad, Daniel Ross, stood at the end of the line, clutching a crumpled paper. Right in front was Ariana Vale, the cold CEO of Vale Investment Group. She loudly complained about the working class slowing down the queue. When Daniel approached the counter and said, "I just want to check my balance," Ariana scoffed. "Do you really need to queue up to check $40? But when the teller's screen lit up, the entire room fell silent. Ariana froze. The number that appeared stunned the whole bank. Daniel Ross, 35, single dad, works 3 jobs to support his 7-year-old daughter, Lily, kind-hearted and exhausted. Ariana Vale, 32, cold billionaire, CEO of Vale Investment Group, focused purely on profit and status. Lily Ross, 7, Daniel's daughter, sweet, cheerful, and deeply aware of her father's struggle. Daniel lived in a tiny rented apartment on the outskirts of the city. The paint was peeling. The heating system was unreliable. He constantly worried about the landlord's next eviction notice. Every morning he was up by 5 a.m. for delivery runs, navigating the freezing pre-dawn streets. In the afternoon, he worked as a plumber's assistant, his hands constantly raw from chemicals and pipe rust. By evening, he was cleaning offices for a commercial service company, scrubbing floors where men like the ones in the bank spent their days making millions. All of it was for Lily, the only remaining anchor in his life. Her mother had passed away shortly after the patent lawsuit began. He had channeled his grief and his anger into a fierce, quiet devotion to his daughter. Today was special. Daniel needed to check his bank balance to ensure he had enough money to buy Lily's asthma medication. The cheap generic was no longer working. He only had a week's supply left. He desperately hoped to see a few $100s, enough to scrape by for the month, enough to avoid asking for another loan from his aging neighbor. The crumpled paper in his hand was the pharmacy invoice. It felt heavier than any pipe wrench he carried. Ariana, however, was a sharp contrast. She swept into the bank like a high-end storm, her Italian leather coat, her diamonds. The staff instantly catered to her every whim. Employees bowed continuously, terrified of her reputation for ruthlessness. She showed clear disdain for having to share the waiting line with what she considered lesser people. Anna, her impatience was a tangible thing, a demanding aura that made everyone around her shrink. Lily, tired from the long bus ride, leaned against Daniel's leg. Daniel noticed a nearby velvet bench reserved for VIPs. When Daniel politely asked Ariana if Lily could sit there, away from the crowd, Ariana raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow, inspecting Lily as if she were dirt. "I prefer not to have children in my vicinity," she stated dismissively. "They are loud and disruptive." Lily, sensing the tension, tugged at her father's coat. "Daddy, she's not happy at all," she whispered, her innocent observation cutting through Ariana's hostility. Daniel simply offered Ariana a gentle, genuine smile that confused her. "It's okay, sweetheart," he murmured to Lily, ignoring Ariana's fury. "We just need to be kind. That's all that matters." When it was Daniel's turn to step up, Ariana positioned herself right behind him, crossing her arms impatiently, tapping her diamond watch. "Hurry it up," she demanded, her voice sharp. "Pocket change isn't worth wasting everyone's time. Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close." The teller, a young man, looked at Daniel with genuine pity, recognizing the worn fabric of his coat and the exhaustion in his eyes. He prepared himself to process a small, expected transaction. Daniel took a deep breath. He presented his old, slightly damaged bank card, the magnetic strip barely working. "I'd like to check my balance, please," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. Ariana leaned in, a condescending smirk playing on her lips. "I'm betting on under $20, she whispered to her assistant, who chuckled nervously. The teller nodded sadly, already inputting the request. But a woman standing nearby, an elderly lady who watched the exchange with great interest, spoke softly to Daniel just before the screen flashed. "Young man," she said, her voice warm, "you have the eyes of someone who has suffered great pain, yet they are still gentle. Never lose that." Daniel offered a small, grateful nod. Then all attention shifted to the counter. The screen lit up. And the truth exploded. The young teller's eyes widened in disbelief. His jaw dropped, hitting the counter. Ariana Vale was still smirking, waiting for the predictable low number that would validate her prejudice. But then, the number materialized on the screen in massive, bright font. The teller gasped, choking on air. The elderly woman nearby coughed sharply in shock. A nearby executive dropped his briefcase. Ariana blinked rapidly. Her vision must be deceiving her. She tried to dismiss it as a system error, but she read the figure again and again. It was a massive string of digits, separated by commas, ending precisely with 2 zeros. $210,000. The decimal point was clearly in the right place. 48 million. Ariana stumbled back, letting out an involuntary choke of pure, unadulterated shock. "This is impossible," she sputtered, her voice piercing the silence. "A clerical error. Call it." Daniel, completely unaware of the number, he only saw the teller's distressed face, simply looked confused. "Is something wrong?" he asked the teller hesitantly. "Did I mess up my account? I only work labor jobs. I don't need a loan. I just need to know if I have enough for the prescription." The bank manager, Mr. Thompson, alerted by the teller's commotion, rushed out of his office. He glanced at the screen and instantly went pale. He immediately verified the transaction through his own secure terminal. "Mr. Ross," the manager stammered, pulling Daniel gently aside, his voice now hushed with respect. "Your account just received a significant wire transfer from the National Compensation Fund. This is the principal plus 7 years of compounded interest the courts finally mandated your former corporate partners pay you. The final appeal was denied this morning." Ariana spun around to face Daniel, her perfectly composed demeanor shattered. Her eyes were wide, her mouth agape. Her voice was sharp, demanding answers, cutting across the lobby. "Who are you?" she demanded. She was no longer mocking. She was analyzing, calculating, and suddenly profoundly afraid of her own ignorance. The manager, sensing the gravity of the situation and choosing to honor the now proven genius, answered on Daniel's behalf, his voice now measured and strong. "Mr. Ross, ma'am, is the inventor of the Soteria Emergency Life Support System, the proprietary software used in over 1,200 hospitals worldwide. It is the system that revolutionized triage and stabilized more critical patients than any other technology in the last decade. His former corporate partners stole the patent, branded it under their name, and forced him out of the company 7 years ago. He has been fighting a quiet legal battle ever since, while they reaped billions." Ariana's blood ran cold. The name Soteria hit her like a physical blow. Her own investment group, Vale Investment, had heavily invested in that system just 3 years ago, touting its brilliance and reliability as a key asset. She knew the name, the value, and the true impact. She realized she was financially tied to the very injustice Daniel had suffered. Daniel, uncomfortable with the sudden, reverent attention, simply bowed his head, clutching his daughter's hand. He was focused only on the invoice in his hand. "I don't care about fame or the patent anymore," he said quietly, looking down at Lily. "I just want to be able to provide for my daughter and keep her safe. That was all the fight was ever about." Ariana was utterly speechless. The man she had just publicly ridiculed as worthless, as a pocket-change distraction, was the unacknowledged genius whose invention saved hundreds of thousands of lives every single year. The depth of his quiet suffering, working 3 menial jobs while the world profited from his genius, was overwhelming, a sharp rebuke to her own profit-driven existence. At that moment, Lily tugged on her father's coat again. She looked up at him with wide, innocent eyes, oblivious to the staggering fortune now attached to their name. "Daddy," she whispered anxiously, "do we have enough money for my medicine now? The nice one." Daniel knelt down immediately, ignoring the sea of staring eyes. He pulled his daughter into a tight, tearful hug. His exhaustion and 7 years of crushing worry instantly gave way to pure, overwhelming relief. "More than enough, my love," he chuckled, tears blurring his vision. "Not just medicine. You are going to have the brightest, safest future anyone has ever seen." A bank employee who had observed the entire devastating exchange turned to a colleague. "I've seen rich people come and go here. the employee said softly. They've all been focused on the number, but I've never seen a man richer in kindness, humility, and purpose than him. Twist 1. Ariana and her corporation indirectly benefited from Daniel's oppression. Ariana drove back to her pristine office in a state of near panic. The shame was a burning knot in her stomach. The image of Daniel's quiet dignity and Lily's sweet, anxious face refused to fade. She immediately pulled up the investment files for the Soteria system. Her fingers trembled as she read the legal text. Vale Investment Group owned a controlling 22% stake in the startup that had stolen Daniel's patents 7 years prior, a company built on intellectual theft and sustained by dirty legal maneuvering. She was part of the problem. She had profited directly from his suffering, her latest jet purchase, her penthouse renovation, all indirectly financed by the profits from Soteria, the system Daniel invented while struggling to pay his rent. She felt a toxic wave of guilt, something the profit-driven CEO hadn't felt in years. Driven by a desperate need for atonement, she resolved to find Daniel. Twist 2, the corporate board attacks Daniel, fearing a massive lawsuit. When Ariana arrived at Daniel's humble, quiet apartment building, she found 2 men in expensive, dark suits waiting by the door. They were clearly corporate fixers from the board of the former company, dispatched immediately to clean up the multi-million-dollar disaster. Mr. Ross, one of them, a man named Henderson, sneered, holding out a briefcase. If you sign this non-disclosure agreement now, accepting a clean $1 million settlement, we will consider the ledger balanced and close the file forever. It's a generous offer for someone of your limited means. Daniel held Lily close behind his back, shielding her from their cold eyes. That $1 million is an insult to the lives my system has saved, Daniel replied, his voice calm but firm. And if I don't sign? The second man, a lawyer named Burke, stepped forward, his voice turning icy. Then we will ensure that your life and your daughter's becomes very, very uncomfortable. We will tie up your new compensation fund in appeals for the next decade. We will investigate your past. We will file a petition to review your fitness as a sole parent, citing financial instability and the stress of your multiple employment. It was a direct threat to take his daughter. Daniel flinched, his composure finally breaking. He felt the pure, primal fear of a father cornered. Suddenly, Ariana's high-heeled footsteps clicked sharply on the cracked pavement. She emerged from the shadow of the building's overhang. Her voice was cold steel, cutting through the confrontation. "Are you threatening a child's father?" she demanded, her eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "Are you threatening a custody battle, citing financial instability when you are the very cause of that instability, right on his doorstep?" The 2 men froze, their faces turning ash white as they recognized the most powerful and ruthless young billionaire in the city standing before them. Ariana Vale was not just rich, she was known to destroy competitors who crossed her. Ariana advanced slowly, every step radiating cold power. She stood directly between Daniel and the 2 fixers. She spoke each word distinctly, a warning shot across the bow of the corporate world. "Henderson, Burke, I own 22% of your firm. I am invoking my right to an emergency shareholder review. I am initiating a hostile takeover of your legal and public relations defense. You will stand down immediately." Henderson tried to bluff. "Ms. Vale, this is a legal matter concerning intellectual property theft, not your investment group's leadership." Ariana's smile was predatory. "It is now. I will buy out every board member who approved the theft of Soteria. I will personally ensure that every major financial institution in this city flags your personal and professional assets for investigation. Get in your car, go back to your boardroom, and tell your superiors this. From this moment forward, anyone who touches Daniel Ross touches me." The fixers, completely defeated by the sudden, overwhelming counteroffensive, scrambled into their black car and sped away. Daniel stood still, stunned. He had never been defended in his life. He had spent 7 years fighting a silent war. Now a billionaire he had just met was risking her reputation and potentially her assets to protect him. Ariana turned to him. The cold facade was gone, replaced by a fierce, protective determination that surprised even herself. "I need to make this right, Daniel," she stated, her voice tight with emotion. My firm profited from your loss. I was blind and arrogant. My money is tainted by your suffering." She reached out, gently touching the crumpled pharmacy invoice still clutched in his hand. "I want to help you take back everything that belongs to you. Every dollar, every patent, every ounce of recognition. And I will burn down the corporate structure that enabled this theft, if necessary." Daniel let out a shaky breath, finally releasing Lily and wiping his eyes. "I just want my daughter to be safe, Ariana," he whispered. "I don't care about being rich. I just need safety." Ariana met his eyes. The commitment in her gaze was absolute. "From now on, I guarantee her safety. I will handle the rest." Lily, who had been watching the terrifying exchange and the subsequent emotional shift, slipped out of her father's grasp and reached for Ariana's hand. "You're my angel," Lily said quietly, squeezing her hand. "You saved Daddy from the bad men." Ariana quickly turned her face away, hiding the sudden rush of unexpected tears. She realized that Daniel's vulnerability and Lily's innocent trust was breaking through the fortress she had spent her life building around her heart. She was used to controlling everything. Now she was being controlled by compassion. The next day, Ariana ushered Daniel and Lily into her massive, glass-walled legal offices. It was a world away from Daniel's cramped apartment. She mobilized her entire team of high-powered, relentless lawyers, dedicating their efforts to the massive counter-lawsuit against the corporation that had stolen the Soteria patent. The battle was brutal. The opposition, realizing they were now fighting Ariana Vale, not just a tired single father, engaged in every dirty trick imaginable. They launched a smear campaign, leaking false documents claiming Daniel was financially reckless and incompetent. Ariana fought back with calculated precision. She used her unparalleled media influence to pivot the narrative. She held a massive televised press conference. "The genius behind the Soteria system is not some faceless corporate entity," she declared, standing beside a visibly nervous Daniel. "It is Daniel Ross, a brilliant inventor and a dedicated father who worked 3 jobs just to keep his child alive. I was blinded by profit. Now my company stands for justice. The only thing reckless here is corporate greed." The public reaction was overwhelming. The story of the single dad genius and the repentant billionaire went global. Support flooded in, creating immense public pressure on the courts. During the most intense weeks of the legal fight, Ariana found herself working side by side with Daniel. She, the CEO who never worked past 6 p.m., now stayed until 2 a.m., fueled by cold coffee and a moral obligation. One night, Daniel found her slumped over a stack of documents, her head in her hands. She looked fragile, exhausted, and unlike the untouchable icon she presented to the world. "Are you okay?" he asked quietly, placing a warm cup of herbal tea next to her. Ariana looked up, her eyes tired. "They're ruthless, Daniel. My peers. They don't fight for truth. They fight for control. It's exhausting fighting against my own class." She paused, lowering her voice. "When I was younger, my parents, the founders of Vale, taught me that compassion was a weakness, a liability. They only valued winning. I've lived that way my whole life. Now fighting for you, I realize I've been winning the wrong game." Daniel sat down next to her. "Lily taught me that too. When I was angry about losing Soteria, I almost became bitter. But she needed a father, not a martyr. I realized that my kindness, my focus on her, was the only thing they couldn't steal. That's true power, Ariana, not control." Their bond deepened through shared vulnerability and mutual respect. Ariana insisted that Daniel and Lily move into a more secure, furnished apartment that she had quietly purchased, citing the ongoing threats from the opposition. One beautiful, quiet afternoon, Ariana came to visit. Lily rushed out of the door and immediately wrapped her arms around Ariana's waist, a new ritual. "Ms. Ariana, today we're having pizza and movies. Are you staying for dinner tonight?" Lily asked, her eyes sparkling with hope. Ariana looked slightly flustered, turning a faint red as she glanced at Daniel. Daniel offered her a genuine, relaxed smile. "Of course she's staying," Daniel confirmed, giving Ariana a small, silent nod of welcome. "You're family now, Ariana." Supper was chaos, but a happy chaos. Lily told Ariana a long, complicated story about her favorite cartoon character. Ariana, the master negotiator, listened with rapt attention, asking insightful questions that made Lily feel valued. Ariana and Daniel exchanged many glances throughout the meal, silent conversations that communicated their growing emotional understanding. They saw each other not as the poor dad and the cold billionaire, but as two people building something real and deeply meaningful. When Lily brought in a crayon drawing, a picture of three figures standing side by side labeled Daddy, Lily, and Ariana the Angel, Ariana fought back tears. The purity of the label was devastating. She leaned in and whispered to Daniel as Lily ran off to find more colors. I spent my childhood isolated in boarding schools. Holidays were spent negotiating mergers with my parents' lawyers. I never had a messy dinner or a simple hug, or even a friend who wasn't trying to leverage my name. I never had a family, she confessed, her voice thick with emotion. I want to learn how to be one. Daniel looked at her gently, his heart softened by her raw honesty. We are ready to teach you, he replied. All you have to do is show up. The moment Daniel signed the papers, setting up his foundation, was profound. Ariana watched, realizing that his first act as a multimillionaire was giving away money to protect strangers. She knew then that she wanted to partner with him professionally too. She offered him a non-executive role at Vale Investment Group, not for his money, but for his integrity. We need your moral compass, she told him simply. It's the most valuable asset you own. He accepted, but only on the condition that he could continue managing his new foundation. Their professional relationship transformed, evolving from a legal pact to a shared ethical mission. If you believe kindness is the greatest strength, type I will live kindly. A month later, the legal battle reached its dramatic climax. Daniel, with Ariana's legal artillery behind him, won the lawsuit overwhelmingly. The judge ruled in his favor, awarding him not only the original $48 million, but also punitive damages, forcing the company to divest the Soteria patent and revert all future royalties back to Daniel. The final judgment was read aloud in the courtroom, and Daniel felt the full weight of 7 years lift from his shoulders. He was financially secure for life, but with the victory came a profound choice. Daniel, now one of the country's wealthiest individuals, did not celebrate with champagne or luxury purchases. Instead, he did the most Daniel Ross thing possible. He immediately created the Soteria Foundation for Independent Inventors, dedicating the majority of the punitive damages, over $10 million, to helping other struggling inventors fight corporate theft. His kindness was not just an attitude, it was now a powerful, self-sustaining force. Ariana, watching him sign the foundation papers, felt immense pride. She realized she hadn't saved him. He had saved her. That evening, a heavy rain fell. Ariana stood before Daniel's door. Her expensive cashmere coat was soaked at the shoulders. She didn't have her usual crisp certainty. Her voice was small, vulnerable, like a child's plea. Daniel, she said, looking down at her wet shoes, the lawsuit is over. The threat is neutralized. My job is done. I don't have to be here for work anymore. She looked up, her large eyes filled with desperate uncertainty. I came because I miss you both. I miss the smell of your cooking. I miss Lily's stories. I missed being protected by your kindness. Daniel gently took her hand, pulling her into a warm, immediate hug, enveloping her in the simple comfort of his presence. Then stay, he whispered against her hair. Stay because you choose us, not because you owe us. Lily, hearing the voices, ran out. She saw Ariana's tear-stained face. Don't go, Ms. Ariana, Lily cried, hugging her legs tightly. The bad men are gone. Please, will you be my mommy? I need someone to help Daddy with all my stories. Ariana broke down completely. All the years of isolation, the pressure, the forced indifference, it all washed away. She knelt down, hugging Lily fiercely, and managed a choked-out nod. Yes, sweetie, she whispered. I will stay. I want to be your mommy. That night, the three of them ate dinner under the warm golden light of the kitchen. The pizza was messy. Lily was giggling. Ariana was relaxed, wearing one of Daniel's old, too large sweatshirts. She was home. Ariana used her own money to buy the rights to a beautiful, historic Victorian house in a quiet, safe neighborhood, a place with a huge garden for Lily. They spent weeks picking out furniture together, not the sleek, cold designs Ariana was used to, but warm, soft pieces that invited comfort. Daniel's humble framed certificate from his plumbing course sat proudly next to Ariana's honorary doctorate, a perfect symbol of their combined respect for hard work and intellect. The house finally felt like an actual home, not a status symbol, but a refuge where messy crayon drawings were more valuable than stock market reports. The first thing she hung on the wall was Lily's crayon drawing, the picture of the three of them standing side by side under the starlit sky. It was centered over the fireplace, the true heart of the home. Daniel stood behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, watching her admire the drawing. "I don't need to check my balance anymore, Ariana," he murmured into her ear, his voice thick with love and contentment. "I'm not worried about the next audit or the next threat. My account is full." Ariana leaned her head against his shoulder, finally finding an anchor in life. "You taught me that the number on the screen means nothing," she whispered back. "You showed me what true wealth is, so I'll stay, for as long as you'll have me, because I want to stay." If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten.